Welcome to Beyond Co-Sell. This is a show where we get into what actually drives success in the AWS ecosystem. No fluff, no partner speak, just honest conversations with the people who've built it, broken it, and figured out what works. Welcome back to the channel. I wanted to talk about the PCAN community session that we had last night around solutions. So first question for this week. Because you were on the PCAN call late last night and you heard Mike and the others flag that basically the multi-partner solution listings can't actually be made public right now. And so I think it was the update visibility button doesn't work. But you also said on that call, you tried to offer sets and couldn't figure it out. So the question to you, is multi-product solutions actually ready for ISVs to use right now? Or is AWS shipping the press release before the product? Because it's been out for quite a long time, right? They announced it last year, I think.
So first, I only caught the second half of that call. So anything that was like leading up to how-tos or context, I missed. My experience was we tried to do it on a recent deal, and me and my team no longer do private offers. Our revenue ops deal desk team handles them. They've primarily been using our 3PI as the user interface to create it. And so creating a multi-product or a product set from the 3PI interface, I don't think was intuitive. Like I looked at it real quick and I was like, okay, I can see how to create an offer. I can see how to create an authorization for a CPPO. I don't see an easy way to do any kind of dual product thing, although all my products are listed there. So I can see all my different types of listings, the public listings, the limited listings, the PS listing. I can see all that stuff. So I could transact a PS private offer or a software private offer. And then I was like, well, maybe it's in the UI for the native console. So like many, we went through the transition of the Partner Central to the new version, but still the marketplace interface is more or less the same.
Yeah.
And there, I didn't want to waste a lot of time, but I didn't quickly see, oh, if I want to do this, I can do that. I think like most things, if I wanted to spend 10 or 15 minutes watching a video, reading a doc, figuring it out, I probably could have figured it out, but it wasn't that important. What I was after is last month, or, like whenever the New York Summit was, AWS updated a press release, and they announced it there was they released updated pricing for professional services via the marketplace.
Yeah.
So once upon a time, I mean, this is all pretty clear text and you can find this data everywhere. If I'm an ISV and I sell my product, I sell Kong, there's a listing fee or like 3%. So if I sell a $100,000 deal, it costs me 3% to do that. I get 97% or 97K of the distribution. Great. That's actually,
deal,
I
right?
still say it's crazy.
Yeah, it's a great deal.
I've owned a business. I've had merchant accounts. I've run credit cards. People pay their AWS bill with credit cards. It would cost me more to have my own Stripe account, my own merchant account to actually transact credit cards.
There's credit checks, there's legal, yeah, it's
like
no-brainer, yeah.
So forget all that. The point was it's 3%. Now, professional services historically has been 2.5%. And truth is, we don't really sell a ton of like professional services on its own. And when someone asked me, hey, can we sell professional services through the marketplace? I always say the answer is yes. We have a listing there. We can transact against it. Like my teams don't care that much about the listing. The business internalizes it. It's all comp neutral to us, which is great.
Yeah.
But I always remind them, like unlike products, the PS doesn't count against the customer's committed spend. So just so you know that, and so maybe the customer knows that, if they think they're doing this for the same, like if it's for all the other benefits, the purchasing, centralization, whatever else, this is not a milestone-based services thing. Okay, you can do it, but it doesn't count against your PPA or old EDP. It just doesn't count against that. So not everyone knows that. So I just throw that out there. Okay, so the update was PS is now 0.5%. And the reality is, let's say I sell that $100,000 deal for Kong's AI Gateway, and we put in a $10,000 or $20,000 quick start, or, there's some kind of like PS thing for there. So
Mm.
the total value is 100K of services and 10K of professional services. So it's a 110K private offer. Normally, I would just run that whole thing through the marketplace, which is kind of a gray area, but completely acceptable to the rules because nobody wants to create two private offers. No one wants to do one on this thing. It's just complicated.
Yeah.
So you just stuff that through and it's 110K, 100 software, 10 of that, and it just moves through and it charges 3%. And when the delta was 3% versus 2.5%, I was like, not a big deal. But when the delta is like 0.5% and 3%, I was like, okay, well, maybe on this 10K delta, it's not a big deal, but money's money. I generally keep things really simple. Businesses make money, spend money, and then there's a bottom line. And
Yeah.
when I talk about return on value, the reality of this partnership, we get stuck in sourced and growing the tree and the apples on the tree. We also talk about value. I always go back to my business. Hey, that's great. If the partnership can make us revenue, make us money, that's fantastic. But newsflash, a lot of what I do saves us money.
Yeah.
Having a strong partnership and negotiating a better PPA, I'm on the cost side of that equation. Saving money through marketplace versus hiring a huge team, chasing contracts, doing monthly payments. Like no finance team wants to go collect that stuff. AWS makes this stuff mailbox money all across the globe. Currency conversion, all
Tax.
kinds of benefits.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Tax
we
and a
don't
whole
we
load of
don't need
things.
to
Yeah.
get into
Yeah.
marketplace, but like benefits.
Mm.
So that I'm not really making the company money. I am. We could talk about it that way, but a lot of times I'm saving the company money. So I always think of value is what am I doing to help the company make money? What am I doing to help the company save money? And that's really the value of our role, but also the value of the partnership. So back to the original question, like it wasn't obvious to me. I'll go figure it out. I'll go try it.
And I think one thing that came up yesterday was really interesting, which is there's a lot of pressure to close at the end of the quarter. What I felt, some of the questions was, is this ready? My gut
Yeah.
feel was not sure. Now you also meant, and by the way, I have actually transacted one opportunity through this mechanism in the past. And it was okay, a bit clunky, as you say, but you also mentioned the 3PI involvement in this and whether they're actually ready for it or not. How do you see their involvement now and potentially in the future?
I mean, since the first one or two came out years and years ago, I'll give my hats off to Tackle and Workspan that started doing this stuff very early. They've always been pretty close to the product teams at AWS, as an example. But I wouldn't say that the products at AWS were always treated like a typical AWS service. More recently, hats off to Matt Magician, but there's a lot more APIs and capabilities in the back end of the marketplace than ever before. Because of that, if I'm building software for whatever value or speed, performance, whatever my value proposition is, which is the 3PI, this then gives me the facility to inherit and build around those. So they are pretty involved with AWS's engineering team pretty early into the product and build. AWS absolutely, when they write their PRFAQs or their product requirements specs, they do bring in and also think about all the APIs and the 3PIs along this, because I've heard many of those conversations. And even on the call, I think, I don't want to guess an exact number, but I think the exact number was 40 plus, like 47 different 3PI
43.
vendors,
Yeah,
something
43.
like that.
Yeah, yeah,
So the answer was, well, many of them are ready. Some of them are their next version or, whatever. So I think that's the other, but that's always the case when you're chasing features or even for our core product, right? Like, I don't know, we have a integration to Bedrock. Well, Bedrock ships a new version, how many days, weeks, whatever, before we get there. Even if you're in the development cycle, that doesn't mean that's the only thing we build. Like you have to split stream that stuff into your existing product versions. So
yeah.
I think there's a little bit of that. Not bad. It just is what it is.
Yeah. And then I'm not too sure whether you were there, but did you hear about the PRM credit? So
No.
basically, only the lead seller gets the PRM credit, and the other ISVs in the bundle get nothing. So, in terms of your perspective, does that change whether you'd actually participate in someone else's multi-product solution? And I guess, does it change whether you want to be the lead seller, right? This is a
Uh,
loaded question for you.
Honestly, like the PRM conversation is a political hand grenade. I understand it. I actually think it's good, but when you start to peel back the layers of the onion of current EPRM deployment or future, it's really complicated. And actually, Hong was a launch partner for PRM at last year's reInvent. So almost a year, I mean, well, half a year, 8 months ago. So we were early and adopted early to PRM. That's hard. I mean, you're talking about working with your product team, building stuff, tagging stuff, but we couldn't do everything. The way everyone's software deploys is going to be different. And so you have some control, not full control over. And Kong has a few deployment patterns. Some of those deployment patterns don't really fit with the current PRM implementation. And others, I mean, truth be told, I'm going to probably have to pick a fight with my legal team, and I'm just not ready to do that yet. So you and I could talk a lot about this. I think they have an opinion. What you just said is the opinion on how it works. In this case, it's multi-solution. So that means I'd be working with a GSI or a VAR, and they'd be
Yep.
selling Kong with Dynatrace and
Yep.
wrapping the whole thing in an outcome based birthday cake solution with professional services and whatever. And then it's like, well, who licked the cookie first? Who tagged it first? Whichever the lead one was would be the first one that tags. The reality about tagging is it just depends. Are we deploying new resources? Are we tagging the workloads that we're touching? Like we deploy in EKS or ECS or some container. So are you deploying that stuff? It gets very complicated very fast, is all I'll say about that subject.
Last question, just talking about the changes in environment. How likely is Marketplace going to replace the old style distribution network?
It already has.
Yeah,
It already has.
completely. Because I
It's
know
changed.
that there's development,
No,
but
no, 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 no. If you're selling around the globe, there's just places where nobody wants things to change, or that's just the way to do business. Sometimes when you're a company like Splunk was, or CrowdStrike or Palo Alto, you have so many partners. Sometimes, you get into channel conflicts and there's regions and like Disty sometimes also makes sense, could add value. Government, that's another big spot where Disty makes a lot of sense and just the way it kind of works. And, in our government, GSA schedules, and there's just a bunch of, it could be direct reseller, but there's also Disty models. So I don't think if you're one of these companies and you're doing billions of revenue, do you really want to have your business fall apart? So you're going to do whatever you can to ensure that your way of life still exists. I mean, these multi-agent model, I came from unified communications, like that was like a whole world of telco agents and master agents and sub agents, and then they're all agents, resellers, disty. That's what it is.
yeah.
So like that's not going anywhere. So I think the two worlds when they collide, there's gonna be shrapnel, but also over time they're going to figure out mechanisms and models where everyone can kind of win, because you don't want to, if I'm AWS, it's like, yeah, I might be stealing that stuff, but probably long term I want to figure out how to incorporate features or capabilities where it still works through my mechanism. At the end
Yeah,
of
I
the day,
don't,
I still want it through my mechanism. I don't want it around me. So
yeah.
if it's going to happen around me and I don't support it, then I'm also not catching all of that revenue, data, visibility.
Yeah, I also think there's an appetite for risk from the AWS side, and distribution definitely allows them, especially with different regions, just to distance themselves from that legal risk. So there's complications around different regions. I mean, certainly in the Middle East, some interesting practices.
Yeah,
which wouldn't be accepted and aren't accepted. So actually having a distribution layer is worth that the level of margin that you sacrifice, give up, or it's worth that
I
yeah,
have a
pricing
question for
risk.
you.
Yeah, yes.
Will AWS and the clouds act more and more like that distribution layer for software companies in the future?
Without a doubt. I mean, that's something that I've actually spoken to AWS about it without the
Yeah.
dis. So we had a meeting in the UK, the disties weren't there, and all the ISVs were there. And we just said, why are the disties here? When are you actually you're there in terms of funding, so you're reducing the risk there. And then you're giving us all this connectivity as well that the disties give, then what's the difference? You're actually putting a layer of friction. Why not just take the friction away? Because if you look at the margin, you're probably looking at up to 9%. So yeah, it's enough, right?
You also have to be a very mature product with a very mature and stable price list and a price book that's extensible and extendable to someone else. I can't, most of the companies I work for, like we've never reached that level of scale and maturity where it's like user-based license and the world's getting more complicated. It's gone from software license to consumption license to now,
Yep.
if you think of AI, it's going to be token and ephemeral. Like we've always had ephemeral workload pricing where our pricing's consumption, but there's peaks and valleys, and you have to do standard deviation and like summer, like it is complicated.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Like
interesting. I'm
in
actually
my world,
working.
APIs, oh, you think right now during World Cup or like a Super Bowl? No, companies have huge fluctuations with volumes. And it's like you keep, yeah, you can account for the peaks, but they don't want to pay that much for the entire year. And then consumption is just really hard because these are very ephemeral type of workloads.
Mm,
So my point is like, sure, if I sell a widget for $1 and the disty gets 5 points or 10 point, like this is very easy, but no one sells widgets anymore. That's
yeah,
the other reason why this whole mechanism for distribution and chat, it's just harder. Also, you're 2 or 3 layers removed from the actual service provider. So if you're trying to get close to them, influence their roadmap, their design partner, like you're pretty far from all that stuff.
yeah. Too many hops, right?
Just
But
a lot. That's
yeah,
fine for the widget. It's probably not right for enterprise software that may be running your business.
yeah. No, I definitely think it will replace it. And
Yeah.
AWS are very aware of it as well.